Okay, now we can go to Medicaid. We go to Medicaid. Anybody, any question on Medicare? Kind of simple. Okay, let's go to Medicaid. Now, Medicaid is a federal program administered by the states. Okay, it's for the care of the indigent. People don't have money to pay for their medical bills. And every state's a little different. Here's your disclaimer. Every state's a little different, but but most of it's the same. States can apply to the federal government to do something a little different with its approval. So we're going to talk about New Jersey here. Now, Medicaid must cover people who are over age 65 or are blind or are disabled. Okay, we're going to talk only today about long-term care for the aged, over 65. In order to qualify for Medicaid, an applicant must meet two types of tests. Income is one, and resources is the other. Now, most times there's separate requirements. There's a couple. One's going into the nursing home called the institutionalized spouse. The other's staying home. They're called the community spouse. Okay? Both of them have separate tests before Medicaid applies. Okay? There are resource requirements. Let's talk about that. The community spouse can have no more than $126,420 in assets for Medicaid eligibility for the other spouse. The institutionalized spouse can have no more than $2,000 in assets. Then there are income requirements. The community spouse can have as much income as he or she wants. They can even get a job if they want. You can have more. But the institutionalized spouse can have no more than $2,313 in income per month in order to qualify for Medicaid. If they go over that, then the government has us do this qualified income trust thing, which is not a big deal, but it's very irritating because there really shouldn't be a reason for it. And if you want to know about that, I'll go into detail later. Issues really. I'm sorry.
Income?
I'm sorry?
What counts as income? Social Security?
Pension.
Yeah,
everything.
Social Security account?
Any income you get. Dividends from stock. I even found long-term care insurance payments to you as income. It's tough. All right. At the time of the application, the institutionalized spouse and the community spouse are pooled for determining eligibility. Okay? Remember, each of them has a different number. But what social services is going to do is have you fill out a sheet that's going to have all your assets on it. It's not going to care whether it's in your name or your husband's name or your wife's name or it's joint or whatever. It's got to be on that sheet. Some people say to me, well, my husband's going to the nursing home, so I'm going to take the accounts and I'll put them in my name. Not going to work. They want to know what that is too. They're going to add up all the assets that you and your husband or your wife own, and they're going to come to.
Good evening, families and visitors. It is now 7:45 p.m. Visiting hours will be ending, and the lobby doors will close and lock at 8 p.m.
Oh, we gotta get out of here. Hold on. The food was pretty good, though. Right. So, oh, my God, vault.
Thank you for coming and have a good night.
Right. So they're going to add up everything. It doesn't matter who owns it. They're going to add it all up and they come to a figure. And then they're going to divide it in half. Divide it by 2. And they're going to, on paper, give each spouse 50% of the total. So if both of you own $300,000 in assets, they're going to add them up, divide it by 2, and they're going to, on paper, assign $150,000 to the wife and $150,000 to the husband. Then we enter what's called the spend down period. Okay? The community spouse has to spend their $150,000 down to $126,420. So they got to spend some money. And the institutionalized spouse has to spend their $150,000 down to $2,000. Okay? And when that happens, when those two numbers hit, they're eligible. The institutionalized spouse is eligible for Medicaid the first day of the following month. Okay. So what's a resource? What's an asset? What's available? Only available resources are counted. Available is a resource ready available as cash or can be converted to cash in 20 days. So in New Jersey, bad news, your IRA and 401ks are included in this. They have to be spent down. In Pennsylvania, they don't have to. Real estate is only considered available if the applicant is the sole owner and has a right to sell it. So right now, in this situation between a husband and wife, they're probably both on the deed. The house would be exempt. People have a misnomer that the state comes in and takes the house. No, the state doesn't do that. Okay? If there's a community spouse, they can stay there. But you want to get the deed out of the institutionalized spouse's name so Medicaid does not put liens on the house. Non-available resources include 1, automobile for the community spouse. So when you got to spend community spouse, you got to spend your $150,000 to $126,000. You're going to go out and buy a car, not a Maserati, a decent car. Also exempt is property used in trade or business, property used for self-employment or support, personal effects and household goods up to $2,000, and wedding and engagement rings, medical devices, life insurance of $1,500 or less. That's right. If you have more than that, you have to cash it in. And any long-term care insurance is exempt. The family home. All right. It's not available if the couple's primary residence is still occupied by the community spouse. It's not touched. Or a child under the age of 21. It's not a resource. Or there's a blind or totally disabled child. The home is not an asset as long as the equity doesn't exceed $525,000. Okay. If it's not occupied above, the home is available and must be sold. And the money spent is spent down. There are no income limits or requirements for a community spouse. We talked about that. And did we go backwards again?
Nope.
Okay.
5 o'clock somewhere.
We have to talk. The institutionalized spouse can have no more than $2,313 of income a month. All right? That includes Social Security pension payments, dividends, annuities, and other investments. Excluded from that are veterans aid and assistance benefits, Nazi reparations, and federal and state tax refunds. Those aren't included in that income. Now, the minimum monthly needs allowance, or the MMNA. The community spouse, if the community spouse's income falls below the magic number every year, and this year it's $2,057, the community spouse can have some of the institutionalized spouse Social Security and pension in order to bring that up. In addition, if the living expenses exceed $617 this year, the community spouse can get some money to cover rent, mortgage, taxes, insurance, utility expenses, and condo fees. This is my favorite part. The game people play. Okay? People always want to know, how can I stop that? I want to get this money to my kids, or the kids bring mom in, the 4 of them, they say, Mom's getting old now. We think she should transfer the house to us for $1. Yeah, okay. Medicaid qualification is based on the applicant's available assets and income. Families want to know how to preserve the assets for themselves or the next generation. Much misinformation is spread by well-meaning people. There's a lot of jailhouse lawyers out there telling things like the state takes the house, or you have to be penniless. They're going to come and take your IRA and 401k. Not true. But Medicaid is extremely difficult legal area, and you need legal advice. First, there's a 5-year look-back period. When you apply for Medicaid, they're going to want 5 years of banking statements for every bank account or investment account that you owned in the last 5 years. Even if you close the account during the 5 years, they still want to see it. Why? Well, they want to make sure that you didn't deliberately impoverish yourself to qualify for Medicaid. You didn't give your money away to the kids or that house for $1. If you did that during the 5 years, there's going to be a penalty. All right? And what they do is they take the total amount of the gifts or the transfers, they divide it this year by $343.85. which they consider to be the average nursing home cost in New Jersey. They divide it, and it tells them how many days of penalty there's going to be. If there's a fraction as a result of the division, they throw on another day. So this is at a time when Medicaid, you need Medicaid to pay the nursing home bill because there is no money left. And Medicaid's going to say, sorry, we're not paying it for 3 years. I got one that's going to come now for about 3 years because the son stole all the money. So it's going to be a 3-year penalty, and there's no one there to pay the bill. All right, so we got to do something about that. Transfers include transfers the house for less than fair market value. Again, transferring the kids for $1. By the way, kids, you don't want real estate from your parents for $1 because you get their tax basis. They bought the house in 1965 for $15,000. Now it's worth $315,000. So capital gains are going to take your parents' purchase price, tax basis, $15,000, and they're going to subtract it from the sale price of $415,000. You're going to pay 28% on $400,000. So you don't never want to take real estate from your parents for $1 while they're alive. Waiving inheritance, if you waive an inheritance or including the elective share. The elective share is if you write a will that says I disinherit my wife or my right. If you do that, New Jersey statute allows them to take at least 1/3 of one-third of the estate. That's called the elective share. Or if you decide you're not going to accept that personal injury settlement, or you transfer anything for less than fair market value. Exception to the transfer rules. There's no penalty when the home is transferred to your spouse. Like I said, as soon as one spouse goes into the nursing home, you should change the deed to your house to get the institutionalized spouse off. Transfer it to the spouse. It's okay. It's exempt. You can transfer to children under the age of 21 or someone who's blind or disabled, a child who's blind or disabled. Or to a sibling who has an equity interest in the house and who is residing in the home for at least 1 year immediately before the date of institutionalization. This is getting more and more tricky, this one. Or you can transfer to a child who has resided in the home of the parent for at least 2 years immediately before the date of institutionalization and who provided care personally and full-time to the parent which permitted the parent to reside in the home rather than be institutionalized. So if the child stayed at home and took care of you for 2 years when you would ordinarily have been put into a nursing home, and they gave the care personally, meaning they didn't hire anyone, and they did it full-time, meaning they didn't have a job, then Medicaid may allow that child to receive title to the house as a gift under Medicaid. Be very careful with this because they're cracking down on it in Trenton. Right? You make sure you don't have a job. Make sure you're doing the care personally. Make sure it's in the doctor's notes because that's where they're going to look. They're going to want to look at the doctor's notes. Is Missy taking care of mom? Is it in there? It's tough to get through that. Yes.
Is that only in the state of New Jersey, or does that go for?
This is every state, but
state.
New Jersey is really tough on allowing it. Okay.
And you can't have anyone coming in and taking care of that elderly parent or that negates it.
Negates it. Yep.
Thank you.
Other assets are exceptions if transferred to a spouse or to another for the sole benefit of a spouse, to a child who's permanently disabled, or to a trust established for the sole benefit of another who is under the age of 65 and disabled. So let's talk about advanced planning. Now you know what some of the sticky points are. You may want to the 5-year look back. So if you want to do something now and you want to let that 5 years run. You don't want to apply. You want to make a gift now, get it done, then not apply for Medicaid for 5 years, plus 1 day, and they look back and they don't see what you did. This is what people are looking for. So trusts. Medicaid won't have a problem with a trust as long as the Medicaid applicant has rights to the funds. Okay, so that's your irrevocable or irrevocable living trust if you have one because you have control over it. You can take money out of it. Well, of course, Medicaid isn't have a problem with that because they're going to make you take the money out, right? What some people do if they have the money is create an irrevocable trust. Now, an irrevocable trust is just that. Once you start it, it's there. You have no rights over it. You have no control over it anymore. You set it up, bang, it's not yours. You put money in an irrevocable trust is as if you gave it to another person. Me. Thank you. It's not yours anymore. Okay, the trust in the eyes of the law is a person. It's theirs. It belongs to the trust. Okay, you put all your money in there. You keep 5 years of nursing home costs in your own pocket, so that if you have to go into a nursing home, you can private pay for 5 years. You would then not apply for Medicaid for 5 years plus 1 day in a perfect world. They'll look back and don't see the trust, and then the trust can dissolve and go to the kids. That's what you want to do. Okay. Now, some people say, well, aren't I allowed to give $15,000 a year? Yes, you can give $15,000 a year as many people as you want, including your favorite lawyer. But it can only be for purposes of escaping having to file a gift tax return with the federal government. That's all that means. You give $15,000 away to apply for Medicaid. Medicaid's going to say, penalty. Okay, so it's only for purposes of that. So the idea is, with the trust, is that because of the 5-year look back, you want to make your gift now. So instead of giving your kid $15,000 a year, who's my mother? I'll call her. $15,000 a year. You give one this year, you start the 5-year clock ticking. All right. You do it again next year, you reset the clock back to 5 years instead of it being year 4, 3, 2, 1. So the idea is to get all the money now you're going to give to them, put it into the trust now, and make no more gifts. Let that 5-year clock run out. You'll have to file a gift tax return, but it's not a big deal. Okay? You know?
Does that cost money, what you just said about the gift?
Cost.
When you file,
No, there will be no gift tax, unless you got $11 million, but there'll be no gift tax. It's not a big deal. It'll cost you money because your accountant has to file it. Thank you. Another thing you can consider is Medicaid annuities. Not just any annuity. It has to be a Medicaid approved annuity, and there's very few of those. And you got to be very careful in this area. A Medicaid annuity, again, is sort of like the irrevocable trust. You can't terminate it. You can't sell it on the open market. It can't be transferred to anybody else. And what it does, of course, as any annuity does, it kicks off income. Okay? And you want that income kicked off to the community spouse, because remember, the community spouse, there's no income requirement. So what you could do is you could take an asset that you have to spend down. Jeez. I'm an Irish lawyer. I gotta talk. Okay. All right. And you put something like that, it creates income, and you transfer an asset that way. Practical considerations: keep focused on the care needed by your elderly family member. It's easy to get involved in all this financial stuff. All right. But the real end here, and I'm going to say it loud and clear: the elderly person needs the care. Make sure they get it. It's their money, for God's sake. Make sure they're taken care of. It's best to enter a facility using private funds for the following reasons. You get to choose the facility, and you get to stay when you go on Medicaid. People say, I want to keep mom home, and then we'll apply for Medicaid. And so, well, you have to put them into a nursing home. Medicaid's going to pick. So what you want to do is make sure you get to choose the nursing home. Look at the place. If you like it, find out how many years of private pay they want. Usually want 2 or 3 years of your private money. You go in there, you pay the bills for 2 to 3 years, you run out of money, apply for Medicaid, and they won't kick you out. You can stay there. If you stay at home and spend your money and go on Medicaid, then Medicaid picks the nursing home for you. That's me again. Okay. Now I talk about my favorite topic of all time. You dismiss mine. That's banks. Okay. I would rather have gum surgery than go to some of these banks and ask them. I know which ones they are, and you do too. Okay. The basic thing is, for Medicaid, you're going to need to go to the banks and get statements. You're going to have to ask them to do things. Most banks are okay as long as you're depositing money or you're writing checks. You ask for something more than that, then you run into problems. Okay. And here's why. There's some things you need to know. They're scared of you. Okay? you're asking for them to do something that they're not quite sure they can do, or they're told from on high up that they can't do, they're not allowed to do. So you're going to need documents and information, and that's the worst thing. They don't want to give you any information because they don't know who you are. All right, the person on the account is a different name than you. So you're going to need cooperation from a business which essentially doesn't want to cooperate, and you got to keep that in mind. First is, banks are afraid about giving out information, let alone access to another person's bank account to a third party. You could be the spouse or a child, doesn't matter. Because understand that in elder abuse, especially in the area of finances, it's done by family members. The banks know it. Okay? So when you show up and you're not the account holder and you're a spouse or a son or daughter, or worse, a son-in-law for some reason. It's always a son-in-law. Everyone knows that? They're scared to death. And from my experience, they have every right to be so. Okay? The second thing is banks don't train their branch employees anymore. Some of them don't even pay them well. And there's very high turnover. So to train them would be a waste of time because they're not going to be there long. They're not like they were years ago. They don't know what to do when you come in and ask them for something. And many times they're not allowed to do what you're asking. They have to contact the legal department in Midwest somewhere. And the funny thing there is I've learned to my astonishment that with the larger banks, there's no lawyers in the legal department. And there are paralegals there who have checklists, and they're not allowed to make decisions if it's not on the checklist. This is like a bad science fiction movie. Then you have big financial organizations. There's one in Pennsylvania that's a huge financial organization, and it does business in all 50 states and internationally. And if you're a power of attorney and you want to have access to your mother or father's account or something, they'll say, well, this isn't a Pennsylvania power of attorney, so we're not going to do it. So wait a minute. You do work in New Jersey, don't you? Yes. Well, this is a New Jersey power of attorney. You have to use it. Well, no, sir, we're not allowed to. I'm like, the hell you're not. Okay? Again, they have this little checkbox, and Pennsylvania powers of attorney are very different than the rest of the countries. So you're going to bang your head against the wall, but eventually you may get them to cooperate. Your local branch doesn't know what a guardianship order looks like, or even what a surrogate certificate is. The time where we have volunteer guardianship, we have one of our guardians go in the bank with the court order and the surrogate certificate saying they're guardian, trying to get access to the poor man's money. And so what's this? What's a court order? How do I know that? It's got a seal on it. Well, I always tell my clients, look, if you're going to go to the bank, take my number with you because I want you to call me from the bank if there's a problem. Don't go home. Call me from the bank. I want to talk to the knucklehead. And, eventually I made him understand that there was an order and he had to. So I told him we can take a walk down to the courthouse. It's a few blocks away. I'll meet you there and we can talk to Judge Rubin, but you better bring your toothbrush because he's not going to be too happy. The third thing is many banks are, when dealing with your request, will not follow New Jersey law. Okay? And that's particularly true of the national banks, the big boys. The Union County surrogate issued a press release a few years ago, and it might still be on his website, that warning people not to do business with the three big boys because they frustrate the hell out of you, and they do, and they don't follow New Jersey law. Please find another bank. And I think that's very sound, especially with my experience. I have the direct line to the number one lawyer in one of these banks in Boston, Massachusetts, who asked me to please stop suing the bank, just call him when I want something. So here you are, you're the executor of an estate, and you're entitled to one half of that bank account no matter what, so you can pay the funeral bill. Where's DJ? Is he here? He's not back. You can pay the poor funeral bill, and you can't because this big bank is defying New Jersey law and not giving you the half of the account. Now, I can go back to my office and I can do a complaint and file an action or issue a subpoena or something. You can't, but just try to stick with them. Keep after them. Maybe they'll do what you say. The fourth thing is you're going to get poor service. Okay. I found that if I order 5 years of bank statements from a bank and I go to the bank and pick them up, I'd better sit there and make sure that I have every month, because I won't. Guarantee you every single time. And when you send it to Medicaid, they're not going to want to hear that, well, the bank didn't give me the, they want to see them. So make sure you get them. And I always tell my clients to take my phone number with them. So what can we do about this? The world we live in, they are scared about us. I belong to the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and because I'm a big speaker on powers of attorney in banks, they asked me to come along and talk to a lobbyist for the New Jersey Banking Association, and he told me that. So we're scared of you. We are scared that we're going to do something wrong. You know, every power of attorney is written a little different, and we got to get this. We have to be very careful here. So the first thing you should do is make them comfortable. Call them first. Tell them you're a power of attorney or a spouse or a guardian or whatever you are, and that you want. What do you need to talk to me? I know I have to give you things. What do you need? And then send it to them. Wait a little while and then call back, and then you'll probably get a good reception. I know it works with me when I do probate matters. It removes that fear and distrust. The second thing is make sure your documents are in order. Most people walking around with copies. Copies are not acceptable. They have to be the originals. Okay, make sure you have the originals and they're in a safe place, so you have to use them, you know where they are. Make sure your documents look legit. Don't take something off the internet that has a couple pages smeared from the printer and bring it in there. Make sure it looks good. When I do documents for clients, I make sure it's got seals and all kinds of things on it so that it looks like it's a serious thing. Okay? And they'll be impressed by it. If you hire a lawyer, keep his or her phone number in your pocket, because you want to call from the bank. Don't leave. Call from the bank. The third thing, and I can't emphasize this enough, is be nice. Okay? If you're stuck, just be nice. The person you're talking to probably isn't allowed to do what you want, although they probably were as short as 5 years ago. All right? Be understanding, but to a point. You can make your displeasure known, but don't go crazy. Fourth is see an attorney if you're stuck. See an attorney. He or she may be able to issue a subpoena or file something in the court to make them do it. Or maybe they have that phone number of that top lawyer in the bank. Go to a smaller bank. Get out of those big banks. Close those accounts and move now. Your family will thank you. If you need 5 years of bank statements, start collecting them now. Don't throw them away. Your power of attorney, you have to go to the bank and deal with them. You won't have to if you keep them. And don't depend on them being on the internet, because that could change in a moment with these banks. Print them out, put them away. Don't use safe deposit boxes for your documents. I can't tell you how many times someone who's going to be the executor has to go into the safe deposit box to get the will, and the bank says we can't let you in there because we don't know you're the executor. Well, I can't get and show you I'm an executor until I get in the box. And just keep them at home. Keep them at home. If you're going to be power of attorney for your mother, go with your mother to the bank and get on the bank account now while she's there. And for God's sake, don't let them put you on there as a joint owner. Make sure the knucklehead puts POA after your name on the bank account. Okay? You don't want to get tied up, your money tied up with your mother's money if something happens to you. And again, as I said before, heed the Union County Surrogate's advice and use a local bank. Okay? Get away from these guys. Your family won't have to get alcohol training or alcohol counseling. Any questions? Yes.
Who are the big banks?
Bank of America.
Wells Fargo.
Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase.
The Union County Surrogate, if you just Google it, that way we don't get ourselves in trouble, has issued a warning about banks. So just type Union County Surrogate and bank warning, and a constitutionally elected officer in the state of New Jersey has a very nice list explaining exactly who to stay away from.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
But it's Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of Devil.
Right? Yes, yes.
I have a question going back to the Medicaid and the monthly, income. If your spouse between Social Security and a pension makes more than the minimum of, monthly income, whatever that was, $2,300, then they can never qualify for Medicaid, is that correct?
No, we do that. If the institutionalized spouse's income is more than the annual amount that they're allowed to have, they're Medicaid ineligible until we do a qualified income trust. That's that trust I told you. This is what they do, okay? Let's say every year the numbers change. Let's say the institutionalized spouse can't have any more than $2,000 in income per month, but they have 3. And it's Social Security and pension. So what we do is we create a trust document, and the daughter or son is the trustee, and they sign this document, they take it to the bank, and they open up another checking account, the Bob Shanahan Qualified Income Trust. Now, every month, I get paid my $3,000 in March. So what they're going to do is take the larger of either the pension or Social Security, and they're going to put it in the QIT checking account, right? The same month I get paid. Comes in March, they take it out. In March, they put it in there. And then by March 31st, they cut a check for the entire amount of that and pay the nursing home with it. And that will make you qualified to meet the income qualification. Now, you may say to me, but Mr. Shanahan, this doesn't make any sense. Why can't I just keep the money in my checking account and pay the whole thing out of there to the nursing home? Yes, that's a very good question. Anybody else? This is what they do to us. It's insane. There's no reason for this. But that's what they want us to do, and that's what we do. And you'll get Medicaid. Yes?
What's the amount if there is no spouse?
If there's no spouse, you're the institutionalized spouse.
Single person needs to be institutionalized.
$2,000 in assets and less than whatever the annual income is. Okay? This year it's I don't know the numbers yet. This year you can have $2,313 in income and not a penny more.
Is that the month?
Yes.
What about overseas assets? Can they grab those? Does it count? It does.
And air conditioning.
Nice try. Anything else? Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.